Hello, hello. Welcome to this episode of The Creative Pause. My name is Susan Padron, and I am here with my co-host, who I will allow to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stacey Faye. It's so good to be with you on the Creative Pause today. Um, we are particularly excited today because we have Janessa with us to talk about tarot and do a group read for us. I'm excited to see what she has to say, and we'll introduce Janessa more formally in a moment. But we're here today, like we are every episode, to offer you a time of respite or a smile or just a way to kind of connect in with some other humans in a positive way at this time where we're all separated. So good to have you with us. And we always start our episode just by checking in and seeing how we're all doing and kind of asking that question, how are you doing? So if you're there on chat, please, by all means, type in a word or a sentence or whatever you want to say about how your day or your week is going. And if you're watching this recording, take a moment just to check in with yourself, write it down, maybe close your eyes, check in with a friend today, and that sort of thing. So I will share, Susan will share, and also Janessa will share a few words about how we're each doing. And hopefully something resonates with you as we share these sort of daily check-ins. So I'll start first. Today represents our last live episode for the Creative Pause in terms of this time period. We're going to have many episodes coming out in May and June, but they'll be pre-recorded. And the reason for that is because I'm just about ready to give birth to a baby. And we kind of have to switch into managing baby and this passion project mode. But I'm feeling very proud today of what we've done in the past 5 weeks. We have almost 40 episodes we've recorded, and we've met so many amazing people and so many different artists that have shared their passions and their talents and their gifts on this show. And I know we've brought a smile to many people's faces. So I'm good today. I'm sort of eager to meet the little baby, and I'm also feeling really a lot of gratitude and also grateful we got a lot of recordings under our belt, because I didn't know if baby would arrive early and sort of mess up that plan, because of course we have no control over babies or our lives generally. So I knew I had to give up that control, but I was secretly hoping, like, all right, we can make it, and we did. So anyway, that's how I'm doing today. How are you doing, Susan?
Yeah, my mind is blown at how many recordings we've done, mainly in the last 2 weeks, but definitely in the last 5, which is just crazy. The show started on a Friday, and right, I think our first episode aired on a Friday, and now like our last live episode is airing on a Friday, so that also feels good. And it also feels good knowing that like we have future episodes and that we'll be doing this again, because it's just been an amazing project. So I don't want this to be like a goodbye or like a chapter closing, but it's still just nice to like honor everything that's happened. I feel really good right now. I feel like I'm really proud of everything that we've done. I'm really excited about today's episode because I'm so psyched to have Janessa on today. I had a reading done by Janessa via email at the end of 2019, and I want to share a little bit more about that later. But I'm excited. I'm just psyched. Happy to be here. Janessa, how are you?
I'm doing great overall. I think, I don't know, the weather is definitely like really affects how I've been feeling. And today's been sunnier than expected. So I feel like I've been sunnier than expected. But yeah, I think it's the beginning of the month. I'm like a monthly planner. So that's been on my mind as far as, what do I want out of May? But I've been kind of thinking about my energy levels and how much energy I have. So it's just an interesting time to plan, just because we can't really plan, but we can plan. So I'm just contemplating that a lot today on what I want out of the month ahead. And yeah, also I've been thinking a lot about like daily rituals and things like that. And I don't know if I've had about you guys, but consistency has not been a thing for me day to day. So those are the top of mind, just kind of like, it's a new month. What do I want out of it? I feel positive about it, but I don't know what it looks like. So I've just been thinking about that a lot today. But super excited to join you all. I think this is going to be great.
Yay. Yeah. For those of you that haven't started following Janessa on Instagram, she highlights these like beautiful pages in like your journal of like the month and your different goals. Like, are you still doing that, Janessa? I know you did it like a lot last year, and I've seen them like here and there. They're so pretty.
Yeah, I'm still doing it, but today was the first day where I was like, oh man, I have a month to think of, and I don't know if I have direct goals. So I think my next post for this month, it's going to be more about intentions versus like very strict like task oriented goals. It's going to be more about setting intentions, because that's where my energy feels at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think, especially since times are different right now, that setting intentions as opposed to like clear tasks is a nice balance to the unknown, or what's beyond our control. Like setting an intention, it's, feel like it's broader or like less limiting or less specific. So it allows that flexibility that I think is really beneficial and much needed during these times for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like with intentions versus goals, there's less guilt. Like if you don't hit a goal or you don't complete a task, I feel like that's when guilt sets in. So that's why I just felt more called to do intentions, because I have felt guilty about things that I haven't completed that I thought I would. So just being gentle with myself and going with intentions instead.
I
Yeah.
love that. And we just earlier, Janessa, on our Instagram stories and Creative Pause, we reposted something from Tracy Elaine, who's a great Philadelphia photographer. And she posted how she's kind of sitting with a question each day. So kind of to your point about intention, she's giving herself time to reflect on like a particular question each day, as opposed to like super goal centric, when am I going to get done? And I thought that was really beautiful, which is why I shared it. Because I thought, what, everybody's kind of in this space where to some extent we can't reach our goals, right? Or like a lot of our goals. And it's a nice time to just kind of look inwardly and sit with those bigger questions of, what we want and where our heart is guiding us.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's time to be soft with yourself and gentle with yourself.
I like don't think I could nod my head any harder to that. Like I was about to start applauding. Like, yes, we need to be gentle and kind to ourselves, especially now. Oh, thank you for saying that. I'm like excited to share the quote that Janessa sent over to us too, that I'm gonna do a quick screen share and pull that up, because it like I got emotional just reading it when she sent it over to me, and I'm really excited to share it with all of you. So the quote is, "Baby, you are the strongest flower that ever grew. Remember that when the weather changes." It's by Cleo Wade. Like, I mean, like breathe that in for a second.
Yeah, Cleo Wade is I'm just such a big fan of her words. And this quote came to me at the end of last year. It was kind of like a whirlwind of a year. And this quote just so spoke to me about like those changes that are going to constantly happen, like as quick as the weather does. So it really brought me peace.
Yeah, I can definitely see like peace, and going back to your point earlier about being gentle with yourself and being kind to yourself, like it is really just in those words and in that sentiment as well. Like, I just want to keep rereading that, like for myself when I need that. I don't know, I need it somewhere, because yeah, when I read it in your email, it like stopped me in my tracks, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you. So now I get the pleasure of more formally introducing Janessa before handing this over to her. And I guess before I get into like her more formal introduction, I mentioned earlier about the reading that she did for me at the end of last year, and she pulled cards that were in reference to 3 questions, and I would love to share the card and her reflections based on the last question, which was, where do I need to take action in 2020? And the reason that I want to share it with you all is because if you've been following the creative pause, and this whole journey that Stacey and I have been on, I think you'll understand why this resonated with me so much. I read through Janessa's email when she sent it over to me back in December when she completed the reading, and I journaled on it, for some time after that. And then I just, left it alone. And it wasn't until just before this episode that I was telling Stacey about it. And Stacey was asking me questions, about the reading, and just like, what about this year did she say? And I was like, oh, let me pull that up. And then I shared it with Stacey. I was like reading it to her as I was rereading it, revisiting it for the first time. And like, again, I was just really blown away by it. So I wanted to share it with all of you. Hope you don't mind. So the question again was, where do I need to take action in 2020? And the card that Janessa pulled was the Three of Wands reversed. Says the wands represent our fire energy. Within their story, we examine our confidence, our eagerness, and what lights us up enough to take action. With the Three of Wands, we are looking at our long-term vision for ourselves. Is there something you've done for yourself? When we plan where we see ourselves long-term, we shape the priorities of our day-to-day in order to meet that vision. The next step after we've contemplated and written down our long-term vision is to take a look at what is getting in the way of those dreams. Take some time to debrief on something that felt like a failure in 2019, something specific. Diagnose what went wrong and what went well so you don't repeat those mistakes again. The wands want us to take informed action in 2020, which involves strategizing. What a waste it would be to make the same mistakes again. Finally, step into your power by opening up to new experiences. Three of Wands is an expansive card. The man on the card is looking out on a wide landscape. We stay small and insecure when we forget to challenge ourselves by trying out new things. Through new experiences, we gain confidence, knowledge, and a sense of adventure. I mean, yeah. I was like, it's so much of like this show, everything that like I've really been doing. I remember like reflecting on what felt like a failure, when you sent that over, and at the time, like that really resonated and hit home. There are like a few things that happened in 2019 that I really needed to process and I wasn't. And I'm glad that I did that because I feel like it really set me up for everything that's been happening now. So.
Yeah, I love hearing those words back. I feel like all of us could use a little bit of that Three of Wands energy. And it's funny, I did a new moon workshop earlier this month, and that was the card I pulled then. So it's it's kind of interesting just to see it come back right now as you're reading it. It's just this universal timing thing. I love it.
Yeah. So to more formally introduce Janessa, even though we've been chatting with her for some time on this episode now, Janessa Jackson is a meditation teacher and tarot reader in Philadelphia. She's on a mission to help people slow down so that they can really get in touch with their best self. She turned to meditation as a way to create more balance between her work life and her personal life, and from there, her practice bloomed. So when she is not pausing to meditate or reading tarot cards, she said that you can find her watching reality TV on her couch. So it's really my pleasure to officially welcome Janessa, and I'm going to hand it over to her. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I think all of us are creative to some extent, so it's so fascinating to see how every person like handles creativity a little bit different. For me, creativity right now is through meditation and through tarot. Meditation is really how I help people slow down, and then tarot is kind of how I provide clarity to people, and to myself too. It's a great introspective tool. I think that's what really started me on my path, was I was just fascinated to learn more about this, like, you know, cards with pictures on them that could maybe predict the future. But once I started studying it, which was just last year with a local teacher named Erin Johnson, I really learned that it's a powerful set of images that really help us kind of figure out what's intuitively happening within ourselves. Yes, I use tarot to help other people, but I think first and foremost, it's been an introspective tool. And then I'm kind of a conduit to help other people reach that introspection within themselves. But yeah, tarot that's how I started. It's been over a year now, which has been so fascinating to see. I remember when I was younger, I like loved to pretend that I was like going to Hogwarts and I was going to be a witch. So I like to I like to imagine that tarot is kind of like my younger self gets to practice that kind of witchiness part and going with the tarot. And it's also been beautiful to blend with my meditation too. It just kind of helps me take things deeper. But today, what I wanted to do was to provide a group reading, which is really, really fun to do. I actually love doing tarot for groups of people because it's fascinating to see all the ideas that get brought up when you draw the cards. So I'm going to draw 2 cards, and it's just going to kind of help us check in with ourselves. That's how I use tarot for myself, is to just check in on how I'm feeling. It's also a great tool for sparking creativity. If you're feeling a little bit stuck and you just need something, you know, you need a creative force greater than yourself to inspire you, I feel like tarot or pulling other cards, there's a bunch of different types of sets to pull from, is a great way to kind of get the juices flowing up here, not only how you're feeling, but with creativity too. So we'll take a moment here. I'm going to shuffle with my deck. There's no correct amount of ways to shuffle with tarot. I feel like people get like really caught up in the shuffling of it all. But I just shuffle them like a normal deck. If you want to take a few deep breaths in this moment while I'm shuffling the cards, just kind of bringing yourself into the present moment. And really just maybe asking yourself what you need to hear from these cards. All right, so let's see the first card that I pull. All right, interesting. So we have this 5 of Wands here. A lot of like, it's funny because a lot of people, the images on the tarot can be scary, right? Like I think that's a big thing that keeps people away from them. But there's great messages and positive messages in all of them. So with the 5 of Wands, we're looking at, you know, there's some struggle here. There's some squabbling is what I would say is going on here. And we have the Wands, which is very interesting because Susan just brought up the 3, the 3 of Wands. So here we're moving to the 5 of Wands. And the 5 of Wands wants us to look at kind of what little petty things are kind of weighing us down. So great for creativity, right? If we're thinking about creativity, what little things in our day are kind of preventing us from getting creative? What are those little annoyances or maybe relationships that are kind of getting in the way of our creativity, of our passion? The Wands are fire energy, so they want us to take action, but clearly like there's not a lot of action going on here. It's a lot of inward action, like they're just fighting with themselves and not moving forward from this. So we'll start with the 5 of Wands, and I'll draw one more card and we'll kind of see what the story that they tell. So the next card I have here, very interesting. All right, we have the 7 of Swords here. There's a tarot reader, I forget her name. It's Meridian Tarot on Instagram, but she likes to call this the Instagram card because it's really about kind of that like envying what other people might have. So he's carrying all of these swords, right? But he's still looking back at the 2, like, should I go back for them? Like, do I need to go back for them? I have plenty here, but for some reason my head is turned and this is what I'm focused on, what I'm leaving behind. So when we pair these 2, With tarot, we kind of want to tell a story. So if we're looking at like the petty annoyances that are getting in the way, maybe we need to look a little bit deeper into where our jealousy is coming up, like those little relationships, or if we really want to get serious, who are you following on Instagram? That's kind of bringing up these feelings of, annoyance. And because maybe that's a block for you. I feel like that's a block for a lot of us, right? We're scrolling through that feed and we're seeing things that are annoying us or bringing up some jealousy. So that's what we need to pay attention to. That's the story that these two these two cards are telling us. But yeah, so that's the group reading. If you went ahead and feel free to kind of react to the chat. So with these two cards, looking at the 5 of Wands, looking at the 7 of Wands, what are those like little annoyances in your day-to-day that are kind of like maybe producing some sort of envy for you or some sort of jealousy for you? And then think about how to move forward from that. With the tarot, there's always a question that we want to land on. And the question here with these two cards is, how can I kind of remove those petty annoyances from my life that are causing some sort of envy and some sort of jealousy? So I just did a reading, right? I look like a magical sorceress with my knowledge from these cards. But really with the tarot, if you're reading for yourself, the breakdown that we're looking at is the suits. So we went over the wands here, which are fire energy. We went over the swords here, which are mental energy. So that's where we're starting. And then I like to take a look at the numbers in each card. So we have a 5 here with the wands and a 7 here. This minor arcana of the tarot move from the ace to the 10. So we kind of like to look at them in a cycle, right? So 5's kind of representing the struggle, the 7 looking at like possibility. So that's what we're kind of paying attention to when we look at the different cards, is the imagery on the card, the suit that's represented, and the number. And then from there, you can kind of tell the story or weave the story that the cards are trying to tell you. It does take studying to kind of more intuitively tell the meanings of the cards, but I started off reading. There's so much knowledge from books. And then from there, you kind of start to piece together your vision of the cards and what they mean to you, because what they mean to me might be different than what they mean to you. So the other part of what I wanted to talk about, so we did this group reading and you've gotten a little introspective with yourself on envy and jealousy. But then you think, okay, well, there's a lot of tarot readers out there, right? Like there are people who this is their business, this is their creative passion. When do I seek out a tarot reader versus reading for myself? Which is interesting, right? Because it's like when most of us are business people here and we're striving to create a product that people need. But I mean, if you get a tarot set and a book, like you can read the tarot deck for yourself. But the time to bring in a tarot reader or to seek out a tarot reader is when maybe you're the one getting in the way of yourself. Because that's where someone like me can come in as like a neutral third party, and I can read the cards for you, weave that story together, and offer the advice of the cards to you, versus you picking a card for yourself, reading the interpretation from a book or even from your own intuitive meetings, and then you think about the question, but then the little thoughts in your mind get in the way of what those cards could mean for you. So that's when I think it's important to seek someone else out, because it's almost like going to see a therapist in a way, right? Like it's going to be a neutral third party who probably doesn't know your whole life story, isn't bringing all of that to the table, and they can just really present the meanings of the cards to you, versus when you read for yourself, then everything can get in the way and the meaning can be kind of clouded. And yeah, there's also, you can read for yourself on a daily basis, on a monthly basis to set goals. If you're a writer, it's really fun to kind of pull and just, see what sparks within you to tell the story that the cards are telling, just to kind of free write from there. That's definitely an activity that I've hosted too. But yeah, if you have any questions about reading tarot or the cards that we pulled, feel free to find me, or you can answer in the chat right now. But I hope that was a nice little mini lesson for you on reading the cards and how you can get introspective with them, and then when to seek out a tarot reader for when you're feeling stuck.
Well, Janessa, thank you so much. And I know we had somebody hop on a little bit through your presentation. So would you mind showing the two cards again, and then the like sort of contemplative question that we're sitting with here?
Yeah, so I pulled the Five of Wands first, and then I pulled the Seven of Swords. So with the Five of Wands, we're looking kind of like struggles, those petty annoyances. And then with the Seven of Swords, we're looking at like jealousy and envy and the thoughts that kind of surround that. So combining the two, the question that comes up is, what are those little annoyances that are kind of bringing about envy and jealousy in my life, and how can I move forward to remove some of those?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good question. I'm like it's funny, even before you mentioned like, who you're following on Instagram, and it was like, oh, little annoyances that are getting in the way. I was like, social media scrolling. But I'm sure there's more to it than just that, because it's definitely like what popped into my mind right away. But I have to say, a couple things that like popped into my mind that I wanted to share.
Yeah.
I love that you studied with Erin Johnson. I have not met her personally, but I have so many other friends in like the spiritual community in Philly that are all like very close with her, and I listen to her podcast, and she just seems like a really like wonderful human. So it was nice to like hear her name.
Yeah, she totally is, and it was a wonderful tarot environment to learn in. She created just like the perfect little bubble for us that was open and honest, and also just like kept it humble too, because tarot can feel intimidating at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. I know like her podcast, Living Open, and there's another podcast that I listened to that really taught me a lot about tarot, and is very similar to a lot of what you're sharing, in terms of just making tarot more like of a natural part of your day or your life. And it's the Biddy Tarot podcast. Like, she is just fantastic. I'm sure like for those of you that are just listening, might not be seeing the video, Janessa's nodding her head as well.
Yeah, Biddy Tarot is like one of the, if you Google any of the tarot cards, like it's her, her writing is what pops up first. So it's like, she's a wonderful place to start, because she just does such a good basic explanation of the cards and how they can relate to your everyday life, instead of maybe more spiritual aspects of the tarot. Hers is definitely like, how does this relate to me as a modern person?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I really took to when I started to revisit tarot, because tarot was something that I was always intrigued by when I was younger, but I just didn't know how to dive into it, because it always seemed like so daunting, and the definitions or the meanings of the cards that like come with the deck, at least like the tarot weight deck, they're a little intimidating, or like it's hard to kind of translate what the meaning is and then apply it to your life. So that's why I love your explanations, why I really enjoy like Biddy Tarot's explanations too, because it's, I don't want to say it's modernizing it, but in a way it is. It's like just bringing it into the here and now and really making it relevant, and allowing you to like take the different meanings behind the cards and be able to create that story, behind the spread that you're creating, and getting further clarification if you need it by additional cards, and how they all really like lend to one another.
Yeah, I like to imagine that I'm kind of grounding the tarot down because I too was super intimidated by the cards, just the thought of them. I even remember when I was with Aaron, I was like, "How do you remember what they all mean?" Like I wanted to almost treat them like flashcards in a way. And I think what really helped was trying to like bring the scenarios in the cards into my real life and seeing how those things show up for me. So it's like I could probably relate all 78 cards to the Instagram somehow, some way. Like that's like, but like that's because that's my everyday life and it's, I'm on it constantly. So it's bringing it down to this level. I will say one great book that I recommend. It's actually called Modern Tarot by Michelle T. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I definitely would recommend that. She does a really good job of relating modern stories from her life to each of the cards, and really showed me that you can bring your life to the cards.
Well, Janessa, we have so Missy, who's here, has saying that your card draw really spoke to her, not so much about Instagram, but more so with people she works with that are able to take more time to manage their family work at home balance than she can. She's felt annoyed by it, but really it's because she's envious of not being able to have that same balance.
Yeah, that totally resonates with the Five of Wands. One of the first thing that comes up is kind of like those petty squabbles at work in particular, just because it is about like our creativity and our passion where we're putting a lot of our energy. So that makes a lot of sense that work would come up with the Five of Wands, just because also with our coworkers, right? They're people that we work with, but they might not be our friends and they're definitely not our family. So it's like there's just more of those instances of annoyance that come up with people that are in our lives, but we aren't choosing who our coworkers are. And then, yeah, the jealousy that comes up from now being able to see everyone's life, especially if you're working from home and doing video, you're seeing how other people get to handle that. So that's a really good way to relate that. And I feel for you because I definitely am seeing that at my own job too, like just seeing what other people get to do during their day and what other people aren't.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Missy, that you shared that, and Janessa, that you shared that as well, because yeah, I think that's probably where it's also coming up for me too, not in work. Obviously, I run my own business. I am my own boss. So I don't know, but I guess I do get angry at myself sometimes too with how I handle things, but that's not what I mean right now. But in the sense of being envious of how other people are handling or using this time or able to use this time. And um, yeah, I think that that's probably what peaks up for me, and how they're able to just have choices in how they use their time completely. It's not like just a small amount of time that they have. They have more time, but then that also comes with other complex reactions and emotions too. So I think, yeah, I think that this is a great card or two cards that were pulled for us as a collective, that all of us could really take that step back to really go inward and say, like, how can we move forward from this? How can we let go of those feelings or like release those feelings to then make a shift more into a focus on gratitude or positivity in other ways that aren't like tripping us up so much.
Yeah, with tarot and with meditation, I always kind of say that awareness is the first step. So that's why if you're reading cards for yourself, or just right now how I did the group reading, it's kind of what is that gut instinct of what comes up for you when you see the cards? Like what type of thoughts are happening when you see the images, and that's what you kind of want to go with. And then when you get to the root of the question and the root of the card, it's fascinating to kind of actually sit with that and be aware of, okay, well, when I think of jealousy and when I think of pettiness and annoyance, what's the first thing that comes to mind, and how can I kind of work with that in order to create more space for myself, to be more gentle with myself. It's fascinating to kind of bring those topics and bubble up that awareness first.
Yeah, I love that, because for me it was like, while the kind of takeaway was like, what are the petty grievances and the jealousy? For me, my initial gut reaction was like that internal struggle around, um, for me, it's like, I'm going to be having a baby here, right? Babies implode your life. I know this because I already have one. And, there's that struggle that I think many mothers face of like, oh man, like this is going to get in the way of XYZ, like whatever goals you might have or whatever. And in a way that's kind of a petty grievance, because it's like, that's not the point. The point is like, you're bringing life into the world. You're raising this little person, and your life can be that much richer and more amazing if you just kind of let go of that control and let go of that, that perspective. In the same way, like that, if you let go of the jealousy and petty grievances, you're going to come into your best self. And so for me, yeah, it definitely was like a strong, like, oh, because I'm right in that space of like worry and fear and like, what's going to happen with the creative pause? What's going to happen with my business? What's going to happen with that? And it's like, it's a good reminder of like, that's not the point. Like, you're bringing a life into this world, and your life's going to change, of course, but change is good, and change is going to happen. And how can you kind of embrace that and look ahead, as opposed to just focusing on the petty shit, because it is petty, So anyway, to your point of the kind of like, sometimes it's the gut feeling of what's coming up in the cards, and that bigger perspective too, of like, what does this mean in the grand scheme of your life?
Yeah, because I mentioned that it's the awareness, but then you mentioned the next step, which is the letting go, right? Like we can't let go of something if we're not aware of it. So the tarot is really helping us connect, like, okay, this is how I'm actually feeling, and I'm acknowledging that feeling, but now I want to take those steps to relieve myself and let go of how I'm feeling, or change my perspective, change my mindset so that I can move forward. Because yeah, especially with petty annoyances, right? Like that's something we can let go of. That's like a mindset shift that we can hopefully easily get to. But it's one that's going to come up all the time, realistically.
Well, yeah, and it's funny. I've noticed, like on the petty grievance level, it's almost funny that it's coming up in a pandemic. It's like of all the times, like because you feel like, oh, I'm finally over certain things, and then they come up and rear their ugly head. And this time of all times, you're like, you got to let that go. Like there are much bigger fish to fry right now than than those sort of petty things. And Missy says yes.
Ugh, yeah, this has been so great, Janessa. Thank you. Thank you so much for all of this. Do you have any parting words or any final thoughts that you'd like to share with everybody before we wrap up our episode?
Yeah, I think my parting thoughts are, if you're curious about tarot, go for it. There's so many different decks, so many different books to really kind of parse out your relationship to the cards. So just go for it. There's so much positivity wrapped up in the cards, and so many lessons and so much awareness to bring to yourself. So my parting words are go for it. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to find me on any social media. I'd love to answer your tarot questions or do a reading for you. It's a really fun process for me, and I hope that through this and doing this video, you learn a little bit more about tarot and also start your own practice too.
Well, thank you so much, Janessa. I did want to mention on this topic of tarot, and I know we have a lot of local listeners to the show. There's something called the Philly Tarot deck. And I don't know if you know, Janessa, or if you do, but it's a beautiful, like, it's the tarot deck, but done with Philly iconic images. And it's incredibly beautiful artwork. And it actually comes in a deck form, but also the prints that you can put in your house. So I just wanted to mention that for local people, because when I found out about that, I blew my mind. I was like, oh, how great, like to literally transform the whole deck into like a Philly centric kind of thing.
Yeah, I own that deck, and I own one of the prints too. So
Yeah.
if I could travel around my house, I'd show them to you. But yeah, there's a deck for everything. Like there's a cat deck, there's a Game of Thrones deck. Like there's so many fun decks too. So yeah, just dive right in and find your fun way through tarot.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Janessa. This was a real pleasure to have you. And Missy says, thank you too. And I know our viewers who will watch this recording are going to be grateful for the insights that you offered, and also for the reminders to let go of the pettiness, right? And the jealousy, and let's look at our higher selves here. So thank you so much for being with us. And feel like this is an amazing last live episode, you know, for now, until we get into June at some point. But yeah, thank you. It feels like it wraps it up like in a really good way. So thank you so much. And did Janessa, this is Baby Brain asking this, so this may have happened. Did you share where people can best find you?
Yeah, so it's just it's hard to always spell my name, but it's my first name, Janessa, and then Jax on Instagram. Or you can just go to the Creative Pause Projects page and find me from there.
Awesome. Yeah, we will link all of Janessa's information up on the episode page of the Creative Pause, and that should be there later tonight. So thank you again, and thank you to everyone who's watching this recording and live. And we always end our episode with the same Mary Oliver quote, which is, "What will you do with your one wild and precious life?" So thank you all for being here, and we will not catch you live for a while, but we will catch you on the recordings, which will be released twice a week in May and once a week in June. And we have lots of great things, including music and encaustic painting and all kinds of really cool stuff coming up on the recordings. So check out the upcoming episodes page on the Creative Pause. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.